G'day ladies and gents, Cubic Meter here. Now this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a long while. I had some pretty cool ideas for various furnace arrays, and even started recording a bunch of information about testing different configurations. But unfortunately, none of these ideas worked out the way that I quite wanted them to go. So here we are. Let's get into some of the details about how to build the perfect furnace array. So of course, the basic idea of your furnace is that you input a raw material, you input a fuel, and then you convert that item into its smelted form. This is pretty straightforward, but then things get quite tricky when you start to think about furnace arrays. The basic idea is that because it takes so long to smelt each item, you want to smelt multiple items in different furnaces in parallel to increase the speed in which you can retrieve your smelted products. There are 4 basic principles for any furnace array. First, we have item distribution. We need to make sure that the items you want to smelt get spread out evenly between every single furnace in your array so that you can run the operation perfectly in parallel. Then of course you have your fuel distribution. You need to make sure that every single one of your furnaces has enough fuel to perform the smelting operation. You then have item collection, where you obtain your smelted results, and then you want to automatically combine all of them together into a centralized storage. And then on top of all 3 of these things, you have precision timings. Because every single furnace takes exactly 10 seconds to smelt a particular item, you want to make sure that you have the next item from the item distribution ready right at the moment that it finishes smelting the previous one to get the maximum utilization out of your fuel. You also need to balance this with your item collection to make sure that it can keep up with the rate of your furnace array so that items don't build up. With all of that in mind, I want to go ahead and show you 2 awesome precision furnace array designs for varying applications. These are 2 slight variations of a 64 furnace array, and this is a massive 1728 furnace array. The reason why I went for the specific numbers 64 and 1728 is because these numbers represent the exact amount of items that I can store in a single slot of the player's inventory. So here I have a full stack of raw pork chops, which is 64. And here is a full shulker box of raw pork chops, which is exactly 1728. These numbers are a perfect compromise for the ergonomics and functionality of a furnace array, because with this small design, I can simply drop in a stack of items, like so, and then have those items smelted in a single operation. That makes this small and nifty little 64 furnace array perfect for those odd smelting jobs. So all we have is this simple interface where you just input the items you want to smelt inside of this chest minecart. You can do anything from a single stack to the full chest minecart. You can technically also do anything less than a full stack. However, I'll get into why this is undesirable in a moment. Right below the input for our items, we have this chest, which is our fuel input. And if I empty this whole thing out, this whole double chest, as well as the hopper underneath it, will activate a mechanism which prevents the furnace array from starting. However, if there is an operation ongoing at that moment, there will still be some buffer of fuel in this chest minecart below. All this wiring behind the interface gives the furnace array its precision abilities. The orange represents a precision clock for the fueling. What we have is a modified hopper clock, which is very precisely timed to allow it to detect exactly when this fuel expires. So if I go ahead and input some items like so, first of all, it will have this mechanism that detects when the chest cart has items in it, extending this latch which connects our system to start the furnace array. So all I need to do is hit this button. The chest cart pops down, distributes all the items between all the furnace perfectly evenly, like so, and you might notice that every single one of the furnaces has had exactly 1 fuel put inside of this slot. That has come from the release of this chest cart, which is now reloading. While all of this is happening, we also have this hopper clock which is ticking down, and what it's doing is timing this burn time in the furnace so that by the time the furnaces have used up the previous fuel, this hopper clock will be fully reset, and if you activate another smelting operation, it will dispatch the fueling cart and send exactly 1 fuel into this slot again. The advantage of this precision fueling means that you don't need to have a whole bunch of fuel backlogging into these slots all the way to wherever your centralized fuel storage is, which means you can initialize this furnace array off of a very small amount of fuel initially. And as I said before, ideally your minimum smelting operation would be 64 items or exactly a stack. You can technically do less than a full stack, but what this would mean would be that if I say put only 32 items in that chest, only half of the furnaces would start burning, and then you would end up with an extra fuel in this slot. However, that wouldn't cause any problems, and all you would have is just some fuel left over in some of the furnaces. If the operation is more than a single stack, like say for example if I put exactly 8 stacks, that means that each furnace will smelt exactly 8 items, meaning we'll use up exactly 1 piece of fuel from the furnaces. So if I go ahead and start this furnace, I have perfectly timed this rail for the distribution system such that if we look inside of one of these furnaces, the exact moment that this item gets smelted, it gets replaced by a new item and we lose absolutely no burn time. Our items get dispatched to this simple little storage system, which collects the items as quickly as possible. This is achieved by simply using hopper minecarts like so, which pick up the item, then evenly distribute it through all of these hoppers into this chest, giving us the fastest push rate possible into this chest. If hopper cart spam isn't your thing though, you can also have the option to simply dump the items on the floor in front of the player. Now for our item collection, all I've got is this chest cart which gets dispensed on this rail at the same time that the items get smelted. So what will happen is the items will get pulled out by this hopper. Then as the chest minecart comes by, the hoppers will push it into the chest cart, and we make use of the new mechanic in 1.19 that allows us to instantly delete the chest minecart and extract the items like so. We then obtain the chest minecart back inside of this dropper line, which goes back up to the dispenser, allowing us to recycle the minecart. This is a new mechanic introduced in 1.19, so in full vanilla, this furnace array would technically only work in 1.19. However, right now I'm in 1.18.2 using a mod which implements the mechanic. This is finally a design for a simple little furnace array that I myself would consider using in survival. But let's say that we wanted to smelt much more than simply a stack of items. Well, that is when we bring out the big guns. This is a massive 1728 furnace array which I am designing for the WaveTech server. It uses an extremely unique mechanic to distribute the items, allowing us to have these extremely compact furnace array modules. You just gotta see it, it's so satisfying to watch. I've just gone and got myself a shulker box of smeltable items. I'll just put them into here. And we're currently tick frozen so we can get a good look at the internal mechanics. Right here, we've got a simple shulker box unloader with 32 stacked hopper minecarts waiting for us to place down our shulker box. So if I go ahead and unfreeze like so. Did you see that? Did you see how fast it just unloaded that box? That is absolutely insane. So right now, every single one of these hopper minecarts has exactly 54 items. I've just used a command block to freeze the game at the perfect moment so we can watch the majesty of the item distribution. So if we get into position like so, I'm going to go ahead and unfreeze. Look at that. We use this rail curving mechanic where the moment that the hopper minecart touches the detector rail, the first cart that gets ticked passes through. However, the rest of the stack continues going straight. Isn't that awesome? Now, something that I should be very clear about is that this mechanic is directional. With this simple setup, we will see that it only works in the negative Z direction. Any other direction and the mechanic completely fails. Therefore, this entire furnace array will only work if all of these rails are pointing in the negative Z direction. This compromise, however, is perfectly acceptable given the advantages. Plus, it's just way too satisfying to watch. If we go ahead and take a slice out of our furnace array module, I've gone ahead and implemented a pretty neat hopper locking system. So of course, the objective is to make sure that while the furnace is inactive, we lock these hoppers right here. And I've managed to do this using a single redstone block pushed in by a piston like so. However, the problem is, we also need to get a chest minecart over these hoppers to distribute the fuel into our furnaces. So my ingenious solution is to simply push in the rail for the chest minecarts when we unlock the hoppers. And so now the chest minecarts can move freely over the top of the hoppers. And when we want to lock the furnace array again, all we need to do is that. And now both of these hoppers are fully locked. For the fuel distribution, once again, I have this precise hopper clock to precision fuel every single one of the furnaces. So if I can look inside of one, here we go. You can see we have exactly one coal in every single one of these furnaces. A shulker box unloading station keeps these chest minecarts topped up at all times with coal. For the item collection, I've got these dispensers with hopper minecarts being perfectly timed to dispense the minecart at the exact moment that the smelting finishes. So if I go ahead and unfreeze, there we go. We collect all the items at the perfect time. Every single one of these hopper carts will pick up exactly 54 items by the time they reach the end. Then we stack all the carts together. You can see 54 in each. Then we send them to the centralized box loading system. We yeet the carts using the new 1.19 mechanic. Then we assign the items to a dedicated 8x shulker box loader. In here we can take a look inside of the shulker box, and we can see we are loading this box at lightning fast speeds. This is by far the most powerful feature of this furnace array. The fact that you can input a single shulker box of items and then retrieve that same shulker box but smelted at the output. This makes it the perfect furnace array for bulk smelting operations. Being able to smelt effectively an entire shulker box in a single 10-second operation, which gives us a total speed of over 600,000 items per hour. Of course, you can go even further with more furnaces. However, I would say that this is the perfect compromise to make, as you can get one shulker in, one shulker out. And this perfect balance of input and output lets us get away with some things you wouldn't normally be able to do with a furnace array, such as smelting mixed boxes like this. If I input this box like so, we load up all the furnaces with our different items. We'll also get our mixed items out, and these items will of course all be loaded into the same shulker box. So here is what we put in, and here is what we get out. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Now the ordering of the items got messed up a bit, but that's not really important. What's important is that we got exactly the same amount of items out that we put in. So of course, in order to use this furnace array, you will need the drop full cart mechanic introduced in 1.19, or you will need to mod it into an earlier version through the drop full carts mod. This mechanic just streamlines the whole process so much, as we can simply store all of our hopper carts inside of a buffer like so. For reference, here is my previous design for this furnace array that I made over a year ago. It has these massive silos filled with stacked hopper minecarts. So keep in mind, every single one of these is 32 hopper minecarts, meaning that we have hundreds of hopper minecarts sitting around in the world doing nothing and creating an enormous amount of lag. This whole box loading system, without the cart yeeting mechanic, was also ridiculously overcomplicated and unreliable. So I was so excited to find out that with the cart yeeting, you could simply just yeet the carts and forget about them as they trickle into some storage system, making everything so much easier. Like, look at how easy this system is just by separating the carts from their items. So that is why you're only getting this video now. It takes a lot of time to design contraptions like this, so if you appreciate my work, feel free to subscribe and get notified when my next project is ready. If you want to check out the furnace arrays yourself, then take a look down in the description for a world download. I hope you enjoyed going over these crazy new designs, and I will see you next time.